Yeah. I was gonna look it up. The rest will be on the hook anyway. Who's been messing with my laptop?
Okay.
Huh.
I don't know my password, but my phone
That
does.
plan for the Eagle Mill definitely have to have in the spec that the contractors visited the site and made himself aware of all of the conditions because the survey may not capture all of the issues.
And what's different here is that because we're bidding it out the way we're bidding it out without SED, I think we've got a little more latitude to say you've got to.
Yeah.
And because the district isn't required to take those bid earlier.
Yeah.
So,
I might have one bidder. The guy who's doing our project in Sylvan Beach is from Albany,
oh, okay.
and he's interested. Site work only, prime, he's perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if he pulls the plan.
Nice for everybody.
Yeah. I think we have enough budgeted for that easily.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I can't tell you the last time I was at time.
Yeah, I don't know one in a while either. Actually, these ones.
Yeah.
Look at all the
Plausible.
well, now they're hidden by there.
Joe was checking the logs closely.
Yeah, there was a time in my life where it was slacks and dress shirts and ties every day. Norm Macdonald is?
Norm McDonald,
Yeah, he was
the comedian.
yeah,
Yeah,
he died today.
he did.
Yeah,
From what?
cancer.
Oh, he did.
61.
You know, that's what you just never know.
What's that?
Just never know.
No.
I didn't realize he was sick.
Well, no, and I can imagine
Yeah.
this was probably wouldn't,
Yeah.
advertise it.
It just makes you.
Yeah. The world does not care for your plans.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, as much as we save for retirement.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've had friends who have had retired and passed away within a year of retirement. I know I always look like my grandparents all lived into their 80s. One lived to 92. My parents are in their 80s, so I figure I do have longevity in my genes. But you never know.
No, you do not.
I know one thing. I give myself an aneurysm check once or twice a week
Yeah.
with the biking.
Right? You're pushing it.
Yeah, the other day I hit 171.
Oh, wow. Huh?
Wasn't going that fast.
Yeah.
A little disappointed.
Yeah. No, I had a heart condition for a while. I had a weird arrhythmia,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and they got in there and fixed it.
Or did they?
Yeah.
Ah. Was that with the little, with the
A catheter.
cattle?
Yeah. No, no, with a catheter up through vein.
Oh, okay.
Just like snake it up there and go zip zap zap.
Zapped a few things, yeah.
You just basically cut some electrical connections.
Oh, okay.
And
Amazing how you know that.
I know, like,
My father, both my parents had an AFib condition. My
yeah,
father's
I
is
had
worse
AFib as
than
well.
my mother's.
Yeah.
He's had a couple times where he's had a bad heart rate and they had to shut his heart down and
Zip
get
zap.
battles.
Yeah. I had a bunch of weird
Yeah.
rheumatic things,
Yep.
and they would come up at the worst time. And
Right.
so, yeah, it was a. You didn't realize how much it affected your life until it wasn't there.
Oh, yep.
I
You know,
found
I
myself
really,
lucky.
I think sometimes you get disciplined in certain things and then you realize there's a lot of other people who have a lot worse.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, one of the guys who was a year behind me in high school was in an auto crash in March, and he was paraplegic.
Oh geez.
He's got some movement in his arms, a little
Yeah.
bit like in his legs, like tingling.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But he's been posting a lot on Facebook, so I think about life as a
Yeah,
paraplegic.
yeah.
When you look at it and you think how quickly life can change.
Yeah.
It's just a little car crash.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our elementary school bus loop project forum. So we're going to do this before the board meeting begins. So we do have some guests here. I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm Drew Jones. I'm with Ashland McGraw Architects. We were lucky enough to be selected as the new architects for the district. I'm a project manager and associate principal there, and I'll be running the project.
And I'm Ed Keplinger, Freeman Associates. We're landscape architects and did a lot of the planning that's part of this project.
And we also do have a construction manager, and that'll be schoolhouse construction. And so we're here to talk about the bus loop project. And so we're going to run through just a few slides about the project, and if anybody has any questions, you can ask. So right now, this is an overhead shot of our fields. And so you can see the area where we have the bus loop currently. So currently, buses come in here, and you can see that it's very tight with cars in the parking lot and buses. Right now, we actually have built a little turnaround right there to accommodate the greater number of cars that we've had since the COVID shutdown. So we have more cars than usual because we've been asking parents to drive to school. Even before there was a greater influx of cars, there was still an issue in the parking lot with lots of conflict between cars and buses and pedestrians. So you can see the little turnaround that we've made here. So our maintenance folks made that, but you can see in doing that, we made a 4-lane highway at the beginning of the driveway so that cars can drop off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon right there, while buses are coming in the loop at the same time. So we got all these things happening so that we can be more efficient to get parents off to work. But what it does also is makes things very kind of chaotic in the morning. And so what we're proposing is actually to remove buses from the equation altogether and bring them to a different place entirely. So I'll turn it over to Drew so he can explain, Drew or Adam to explain what we have going on.
Sure. So I'll take it first, and then I'll hand it off. Huh? Okay. So we had ample opportunity between the bus garage and the softball field to take buses out of the equation from the upper part of the parking area so that they can be completely separate. And the beauty of bringing them down there is they have much better access to the road. They're much closer to the bus garage. And by virtue of how we designed the turnaround, you wind up with quite a bit of extra parking spaces for event parking for the fields behind. So you're kind of getting bang for your buck by doing it. You're getting buses out of the upper lot, you're adding more parking, and you're allowing that upper lot to become whatever it's going to be able to become without buses in the mix. So, do you want to talk
Okay,
about
yes,
some of
I'll
that?
talk about the plan. Starting from the top, at the entrance and exiting at Route 7. Right now, if you're familiar with it, it's a very oblique intersection for buses entering the highway. It's very tough sight distance looking probably to the east, the way it's angled. So what we're looking at doing is improving the access to the lot by providing a more 90-degree intersection at that point. The access driveway comes in, and that acts as a spline to separate the bus loop and the parking that would be associated with the bus loop from the bus garage activities. We've provided parking in a chevron format along a sidewalk. That chevron will hold 11 buses, which is enough to handle the school. We have the turning radius coming around the end is more than adequate. We have a software program called Auto Turn, which does 3D bus movement simulation. So there's plenty of room for a bus to negotiate that turn. From the school down to the bus loop, we have a sidewalk that connects the 2 points. The sidewalk would go in at a 3 to 4% average grade, so everything is ADA compliant going from the school down to the bus drop-off pickup area. We're improving the service area. Right now, there's some retaining walls that are in that area that are in disrepair, so we'll be repairing the retaining walls and paving that area. And then we're providing a connector driveway that goes from this bus loop to the main parking lot. And this will be gated. So most of the time, 99% of the time, the gates will probably be closed. But when there's large activities at the school, the gates could be open to provide additional overflow parking to this area. And this area provides parking for about 50 parking spaces, which will be good. And it also provides additional parking to support the track and football field behind the school, so you'll have more parking in that area. So that's the overview of the project.
And then the state SED asks us to do a little bit of work inside a building so we can justify the work on the site. It's an accounting thing for them. They need to see some work in the building so you can do this work. So we're choosing to replace windows within the building, and we're going to do these 7 rooms, and they're going to be replaced in kind. So right now you have single clasp side sliders. That works for both operation of a regular window, but it also meets the egress requirements for an emergency window that SED requires. So they require one clasp and open all in the same movement. That's what they require for an egress window. And you'll have that same functionality when we're done. You will have better performing windows. You will have better detailed windows at their edges that are flashed properly and don't allow water into the school.
So in order to fund this project, we found that the fund balance that was generated from the the COVID-19 pandemic generated fund balance in pretty much the value of how much this project will cost. So what we've done is taken that extra operational cost, the operational expenses that didn't go out during the months of March, April, May, and June of 2020. That amount pretty much is sitting in the bank, and that's how we will fund this capital project. So there will be no impact to taxes. There will be no borrowing whatsoever. The money that pays for this project is already sitting there and waiting to go.
And so that really is the extent of this project. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Yeah, the state share. Are you talking about the aid ratio that we're going to get on the project? Yes. Okay. So it's right around 8, like only money that we're using for this is fund balance that we have. So, if we didn't use it on this project, it would likely go into the reserve. And our reserves are already funded in a pretty healthy way right now. So, state aid we pay during the duration of the construction. I think state aid is dispersed after, what's the payout?
So you receive the state aid after the expense. So, and that's part of the reason why we're also doing some interior work so that we can earn that state aid. So that'll come mainly because of the fact that we're spending money also on the inside to do the windows. I didn't hear the question.
How will we get back? What will be the timeline for getting that state aid?
It's going to depend on a final projection with our fiscal advisors.
When the project closes?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, everyone.
Plus loop project form. Oh, everybody, so you know, these microphones go into the feed that people are hearing on the stream. So, just so that you're aware.
Okay. We have microphones.
We do.
They're going into the feed.
Exactly.
No whispering.
Shane, good. How are you? Did you
That's
receive
right.
this, or did I receive everybody's? I received a packet that was multiple.
So it looks like I got everybody's.
Remember,
Okay.
I might have got one on one, like a,
These just arrived last week, so if you want to take a letter and a packet and just pass them down. Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, really?
Thank you.
You can.
I whispered to you.
Oh, goodness. Oh, look at you. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for introducing yourself. I'll see you.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you for the app.
An apple a day.
Yes.
Too.
Thank
That's wonderful. Thanks to Melissa's daughter for advocating.
We got prizes. I know. Look, did you see what it says? How great we are?
Thank you.
Annalise is going to be so thrilled.
This is the best gift
That's all you get. That's the extent of your
That's it. This
compensation.
was all that was budgeted for our prize box, but
But it's awesome.
look at how awesome we are.
And it's even like a little sparkly.
Oh, yeah, no,
It's got bling.
Yeah.
This would be the kind of thing I would put in like a coffee can, sit at my desk.
Like forever.
Yeah,
Just
the
look
the
at
race
it.
would
And
get
then
all
when you go to
hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
One of those things like.
So whenever things get tough, you could just look at it and remind
Just
yourself.
look at it. I'm putting it on my desk at home.
I'm awesome.
I got a little leaf on it and everything. Sure.
Everybody good?
Getting there.
Good. All right. I'll wait. I'll get the wrong person, right? what I've been dreaming of. Still waiting? We can blame Shane. He's the holdup.
Yeah. That looks
Oh, okay. No worries. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:46 p.m. And we will begin with a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I did not note any agenda changes. Are we clear, Celeste? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open privilege of the floor. Anybody interested in addressing the board? Okay, we will move forward with administrative reports. I think we have Mrs. Marvin starting. Okay.
So it's really nice to see all of you. First time I've seen many of you in a while. So I did bring an entire entourage with myself this evening, just so that we can start talking about what we're doing as far as curriculum work goes. So the first that I'm going to introduce is Kendra Shadina and Melissa Gregory. Kendra's going to share a little bit about what the English department did over the summertime in developing their curriculum, and then her and Melissa are actually going to talk about combined classroom that they're doing together with math and ELA, or science and ELA, and how we actually did a big training last year with Dr. Niedermeyer insofar as project-based learning, and they are kind of my first group that has implemented, and so they're going to talk a little bit about that. So if you would like to come up. So hello, some of you don't know me, but I'm Jan. I'm one of the English teachers. So first thing was our curriculum work. During the summer, the English department, we were really proud. We worked on our benchmark assessments. So that way every grade 7 through 12 has a pre-assessment, a mid-benchmark assessment, and then an end summative assessment. That way we can see how they would do even if like they didn't take a 3 through 8 exam or whatever. So that way we can see 9 through 11 how they would be doing and how we can track that. So that's exciting. The other thing was we were looking at our book list and we were trying to add more diverse authors. So we actually scrapped 7 through 12 and we started from scratch seeing where things would work. One of the things that we're trying to do is add more female color voices in. So I'm excited because I know in 8th grade we're going to do Wolf Hollow. We started that by Lauren Wolf. And even in 11th grade we're doing a George Takei graphic novel. So it's in the work right now. We're just seeing what worked this year and see what we can add, but it's just exciting to just start from scratch. The other thing we started doing, so when I came here 3 years ago, doing more vertical alignment, so making sure that our curriculum, we kind of talk to one another. So one of the things was building grammar, so making a grammar continuum of who would do what where. So we are kind of working that too in terms of skills. So a lot of exciting stuff. The one thing that I am most excited about though is working with Melissa this year, blending English 8 and Science 8. So usually English and social studies does a lot of collaboration, but one of the things that Melissa and I were noticing was science, for some reason, kids don't want to read and write in science. They weren't using their English skills in that class. So we figured that it was working really well in chemistry and English 11. So we pitched the idea to do it for 8th grade. So we're working on those skills of reading informational text and writing, obviously, more scientific, kind of like doing experiments, like the analysis. So I have this evidence. What do I do with that information? And then adding some creativity as well in science, because you can actually have a lot of fun. Poetry actually fits really well. So we added our little goal. This is what we put on our syllabus this year, just so that we parents know that it's not just about scientific knowledge, but integrating those skills. We both do have a state exam at the end, so it's really cool because the English exam actually uses a lot of science text on it. So it's very helpful. But to even add more to it is the project-based learning part. So we have a field trip coming up to the Hayek Preserve, and in that case, it's tying as well with ecology.
Right. So we have a plan.
It's a long way.
To the Hayek Preserve, and students are going to be learning about forest health and as a kind of a human.
Yeah, so like somewhere out there.
Somewhat of an assessment. What we're going to ask them to do is take on the role of a community member, and so they might be someone who is representing, Parks and Recreation Department. It could be somebody from Ducks Unlimited. It could be somebody from,
Someone who maybe lives in a development currently, or even a teenager who might really want to ball.
there you go. And so we're asking them to take on that role, and as if they were presenting their point of view at a town hall meeting where the town is proposing the development of a piece of land for a mall. And so we're asking them to use the knowledge that they gained in our college and what they've learned from the Hayek Preserve to make a decision about what they think would be more important for their.
Which also will prep us for our final summative part of this unit, and it's community activism. So the whole overarching theme that we're going with is interdependent relationships. So what we're doing, so next week actually we're gonna have a guest speaker come in, talk about how they got involved in the community, what made them want to actually help out. And they're gonna have to be in a small group. They're going to find a issue that's in the community. So this could be a Twinsburg community, could be Connecticut County, could be even New York State. Something that they care about and either needs resources like donations or maybe just awareness. And they're going to create a public service announcement and pitch it to the community. Now I know COVID regulations, it will have to be closed circuit in terms of our staff members, but we're hoping that, with this going well for next year, we can have outside speakers too. They'll be really cool to see. And I included some of our pictures. So we included pictures of the Hayek Preserve. Melissa and I do have snails because what middle school classroom is not equipped without a mascot, right? But it gets better. It gets better. I have Toby and Melissa has Annabelle, and those are our main characters in Golden Hollow. So it's kind of tied together in that way. And that's a cool bulletin board. It's over by 113. So if you're ever around the building, check it out. Drew those snails myself. Heck yeah.
And as one of the examples of how I am trying to integrate more writing into science is one of the things that the kids will be building are tiny terrariums. So what we did was we developed a little project called the Tiny Terrarium Real Estate Project. So their tiny terrariums are only about that big. So tomorrow, each one of them is going to get a little plastic bag, only this big, and they have to think about who they're creating a terrarium for, like a cricket or a earthworm or a snail. And so they're going in search of those things. That is English class.
We are going to create a real estate listing thing. So they'll have to use their appeals to appeal to their creature of choice and make it enticing to want to live in that tiny home. It's great. Any questions?
I have two questions. My first one is about kid reaction to this. So your students, how are they reacting to the fact that now all of a sudden science and English are kind of crossing the boundaries?
So for me, because I had group period 2, and I thought most of them were Melissa's class in period 1, which is not the case. When I said this, I had so many kids go, "Oh my gosh, I love science!" Like they're super pumped about it.
Actually, the kids have been very positive about it. They're like, okay.
Yeah.
They're not crazy about it. They're not upset about it. They're like, okay.
Because the 11th graders really enjoyed it. They loved learning about chemistry in English class. We read Radiant Girls last year. So because they like, yeah, so you know, it's very heart wrenching. So because they had that, we knew the graders would be probably more than great. Second question.
My second question is kind of a grown-up question. So you guys, you've been working together on this since last spring, right? And so how has that been, and what have you gotten out of this experience of collaborating so closely with somebody from a different department?
Well, you could actually argue that this has been in the works since I got hired, because my interview question by Melissa over here was, how do I feel about collaborating with other teachers? And I asked her, well, what do you teach? She said chemistry, and I said, bingo, we'll get that done. Because, I mean, you wouldn't think chemistry and English go. So, I mean, we're
Actually, kind of bouncing ideas back and forth with each other for the past 3 years. But in terms of planning the 8th grade, the creative juices have been flowing to the start of sometimes being very silly, and from that,
like still.
or tiny terrarium, things. It's like, this is a great idea. I'm texting her at 9 o'clock last night saying, what do you think about this?
Or next you know, you're planning a unit about brains and reading a book about that.
It's been good. It's been a good experience to be able to bounce ideas off another colleague in another department.
Because you can think of things like, so Melissa sees things in a different way than maybe I would have. So in terms of like the actual writing process, being more structured.
But having Kendrick who has helped me too, because that's an area that I've always been a little wary of and not really.
You are too. She doesn't give herself enough credit. Is there another question?
Not a question, a comment. So number one, your energy is contagious. Thank you. I needed this tonight.
Well,
I love what you're bringing to it, and I'm sure the kids are going to enjoy that too. And I always think if you combine a program, you're going to lift both, right? It's going to be beneficial for both programs. So I look forward to seeing the results and the outcome. But one of the things I was hearing as you talked was some of the applicability of real life situations that you're also intertwining, like real estate and presentations, and that takes it even up to another level. So wonderful job incorporating like real life skills into what they have to do. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your time. We'll let you know how it goes in the science department update.
All
So Kendra's going to come back up, and Melissa's going to come back up. Another component to this, and I'm going to have Kevin Tondo come up, and Katie's also going to come. We did want to get our kids back in the building early, and so we did offer a summer enrichment program, and we haven't had a chance to present to you guys what happened in that program. It was a ton of fun. We really have been focusing a lot on trying to change the culture here in our school. So the project-based learning has been phenomenal. A number of our other teachers will be coming in to present to all of you, so that you can see we're presenting it at our faculty meeting first, so that they get a practice run, and then they're going to be presenting it with different departments before me. But I wanted these guys, I did ask everybody to come, but it would have been a really large group, to present what they did for the summertime. We did 2 weeks. 1 week was an adventure camp, 1 week was an Olympic camp. And we had kids sign up for the first week, and then we had additional kids sign up for the second week because kids went home and talked about, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. And, these teachers are crazy. We were afraid to come in, and we did open it up to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We actually did have some, we opened it up to they're actually I just got to stand behind them, cheer them on, and get them resources, but they did all the work. So you guys just come on up. They do have a video they're gonna show you, and they're gonna be our first video.
I do love the videos.
Do that. Here's my video. I'm going to video meeting.
All right, so my name is Ken Vitano. I was both parts of the first week and the second week. We did the Olympics the first week, and our main theme was to get the kids creating and building all kinds of different things. We had technology going on. We had the arts department. We had a whole bunch of paintings as far as they did the mural paintings right outside, which is for the Lost Scout Cave paintings. So we tied in history, tied in technology, we tied in athletics. Science, yep, they had a great science department, which was awesome. We also made flags, so they had to create a team flag. So there was 4 or 8 kids, depending on the group, and they all made their own little separate flags. And then and we had the Olympics. We actually hung them up on a flagpole, and they had a blast. It was like super awesome.
The flags came from developing, each had to come up with their own community individually, and then they figure out how to make that community into a larger city, and then from that, then they made a country flag, kind of focusing on what each individual rights.
And Kate created this awesome Olympic segment where they were competing in different problem solving activities and a lot of physical challenges too, so to get them up and going. The science part was really cool in terms of building rockets, because what kid doesn't want to build rockets, right? So that was cool. There was poetry involved, but let's be honest, that doesn't show up on camera. We started, I know, but the kids, they were really excited about. What was really cool for us was coming in and then mostly just knowing us before talking about the summer. So even though the summer's over, we still got to have those moments all over again.
Yeah, I think probably the best part for all of us was being human, being able to relate to the kids and actually just chill out and be fun with them versus having to give them the grind every day. And then those kids I have now this year, for some of those for 7th and 8th graders, and they're like, Mr. D, and they're like waving in the hallway and do the elbow chop thing. And it's fun to see them in a different light, and I think this program really brings that out of us as teachers. It allows us to just be like, wow, this is so much fun. And we've all said it. I mean, there was probably 10 teachers, 10, 15 teachers that were part of this whole program, and everybody was there for the majority of both weeks. So it was a really great program, and it was for those kids that they just went all out, and they needed that. I feel like this was the year for them in the summer to just light the fires on their own and get them going, and they really, really enjoyed it. So that's all I Katie had an awesome Olympics. So much fun.
It was 3 sessions every day, so the kids rotated, so they'd start out one session, so they go to all three, so it's 3 a day.
How many students did you have?
So I think we ended up on our last week, we had like 27.
Good.
28. It's the first time we've ever done
Right.
it, so.
Yep.
I would just like to say, so last year, we know was incredibly challenging for teachers, very, very exhausting. And so, for these folks and other people who aren't here to come in during the summer and work more, when all they probably wanted to do was be done, I think it's really inspiring to see you continuing to work with kids to get them acclimated back into the school environment. Because there were several kids, right, that were not in school at all last year.
I would say probably, maybe 30% of the kids were 100% remote last year, so I've never stepped into the building, so.
So they needed this,
Mhm.
and so I thank you for giving your time to do that.
Wait, that's why we're here?
Imagine that, right? Imagine that.
So we're gonna do this every year?
So we're hoping to, so this year we actually used it with our stimulus money, but we're hoping, and we did have a really great turnout with the staff, and that's how we created this video, was so that we can show it to the students in upcoming years, that they'll want to come. But our hope is to do this every year and only have it grow. We did have a number of teachers, believe it or not, I did not know how many teachers would want to do this when I first rolled it out. At first, they all kind of looked at me like I was too nice. But at the end, before our kids even showed up, I actually had to tell a couple teachers, we need to space this out. I have too many teachers and not enough kids. Too many if you want to be here to work with the kids. So I think it's only going to grow. And we now have more time to kind of talk about it. And like talk about it much with the kids before school got out. So we're hoping, and of course we'll turn to the superintendent to make sure that we have funding. We did have some kid, like we had one student, the last day, I almost went over his talk time and he said, this is the best summer I ever had in my whole life. And all of us heard it, girls, I'm like, oh.
We're like,
At this point in a summer, we was like 2 or 3 weeks after school was already done, and we asked the kids, well, what were you doing this summer? And a lot of them were like, I was home, watching TV, on the computer. Like they were bored. They were like, I stayed home.
I really love that it's in the community, right, because there are not as many opportunities here in our community, so, thank you. Yeah, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Oh, and then we had ice cream on those Thursdays. So solid.
Awesome.
Oh, freezer coffee.
I was in charge of snacks.
yeah, I just think, just to add to that, I know like the bigger districts all have different camps and all that stuff too. And I think the progression of our district, I've been here for 20 years, this is my 20th year this year, and it has really grown so much. And I think that that's just to our staff, to our administration, to you folks, obviously, who care about our district, who want it to grow and want it to keep building. And that's, we need to keep that because being a small district, we need to keep that hometown feel, but really just push it forward and really just keep providing all the programs that we can come up with and think of. So I just think it's great that we just do a great job. Like, I think our whole staff this year, like I've noticed that just through our staff, is really pumped up. When they came in on the first couple days, it was probably the most organized and most fun we've ever had. Is the first couple days because we were all ready to go, all wanted to teach, all wanted to get to the kids. And I just think that that's kudos to our team, to our district. So thanks.
Well done.
I got an email to say, welcome to CSP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Don't
Coach
go too far,
Wilson.
Katie.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you have control back there?
Yep, I do.
That made my life easy. So I'm gonna try to what you can do, found that out. But basically, these are our current athletic numbers. You'll see our most popular sport is soccer, especially among the boys. Second most popular would be volleyball. We have a very strong program for that. And then we also have cross country, golf, swim, and football. Our athlete population, we're only 10% of our population are currently athletes, and this is only for the fall season. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when we see the winter numbers and the spring numbers, and especially the number of athletes that are doing multiple sports. Because right now we actually do have volleyball players that are also on the cross country team. So they wanted to do both. Parents have okayed it, so they're going to be both on volleyball and modified cross country, which is very rare for modified to really do, but it's really nice to see them have different opportunities at the same time. Because at modified, we want to give them as many different opportunities to figure out what they really like. We do have our modified soccer team merged this year. This was a late development, unfortunately, but we did not have enough girls come out for the team. So today we actually just did our physical test for the girls to be on this team, and then hopefully by Thursday we have to go ahead to have them all practice together. I have talked with Tom Galvin at Vernox about the possibility of merging our modified girls soccer team because of our numbers, so we at least have something for the New Waynesburg students so they don't have to play on the boys team. So that is something that is in the works for us. We do have the highest number of athletes for our merged soccer team. So when we have boys traveling to Vernox, we are really helping them out because they are the ones that have the lower numbers. It may not be as beneficial for us right now because we are constantly going to Bern, and that's something to talk about with Tom Galvin, especially because we have mergers that have to be renewed in the future. But that is something that's also on the docket for the future. Top right, we did get wonderful new gym wall pads with our new DCS logo on it, which is really nice. Starting this month, we're going to do an athlete of the month and senior spotlight like we did when we were full COVID mode at home, really to make those seniors feel special. I'm trying to work on something where we can do a highlight video for the athletes, especially because homecoming is kind of in the air of what we can and can't do to try to make those athletes feel special. And our homecoming is on the 9th, but unfortunately we are still at the high level of COVID, so we only have 2 guests per athlete. So really trying to make that feel special for the students is something I'm working on so that they don't feel like they've lost another homecoming. The only other thing that's really been happening is transportation. As we all probably know, it's very difficult right now, especially across the state. I've been working very hard with Dan McConnelly, who's also been working very hard at his job. He has an impossible puzzle to solve on most days. And we're working into a rhythm to make sure we get all our students where we need to, especially adding a transportation shuttle from here to Mahonison for our swimmers, which we didn't have last year. So that is another thing that we're working on.
So just so people, in case people have questions, Katie, why didn't we seek to merge with BKW for girls modified soccer now?
So we would need to know that a little bit sooner. When we found out the numbers, the true numbers for soccer, it was a little too late. It had been after modified boys had started. And when we saw the numbers, we thought that if we could promote it while school started, we could get a few more students like in the past. And this year we just didn't get any. And volleyball is a very popular sport right now because they went from having 7 athletes to in the teens from modified. So that is something I'd like to look at in the future. I didn't think that was going to happen, but we also had COVID last year, so there were no exact modified numbers from that year. And before that, we had been able to field a team, so I didn't really know coming into this that we wouldn't have that opportunity. But in the future, we're going to make sure we do have that opportunity.
And it's too late to have them go to BKW now, to have just a
Yes.
good girls team. Gotcha. Okay.
That's just something we would need to do midsummer
Got
at the
it.
latest.
Got it.
So that is something I'm going to make sure does not happen in the future.
Yeah.
So just for this year, we're doing the mixed competition so that the girls are still allowed to play, and all the girls and their parents have opted to play on the boys team. So they'll still be able to build with skill and actually have full scrimmages at practice because there are so many of them. And then next year we can make sure that they have their own girls modified team.
Awesome.
Yeah.
At 10.9%.
Yes.
Roughly, how does that stand historically as far as participation
from the brief look I had from last year, last year's a little harder because you had different seasons happen at different times. So you had like, I think there were 12 or 15 cross-country athletes, but then they also played basketball, so because at different times, or volleyball. So from last year, it doesn't look as good. We definitely had a little bit of a drop. We had a lot of really high-ranking seniors that had played for a very long time, and once they left, we just don't have the same numbers filling in that hole just yet. So we're really working on that modified level to try to build up that, and talk with the sports in the district.
Katie, do you think
figure that out.
not having like the feeder programs for a while has impacted the numbers?
Not having it?
Yeah, like not having those youth programs run.
I would say not necessarily. I know that we have coaches that are very flexible and share the time, especially at the modified level. It's a lot easier to do at the JV level. But if someone is very serious about theater, that gets harder at the varsity level. So it does and it doesn't. I think for the younger kids, it's a benefit to have that because they're able to do both, especially because their coaches are flexible. Yeah.
So so I know for volleyball, that's the family we live in. But Coach Armstrong and Coach Patry both did a summer program
Yes.
at the end to bring in the younger kids. And I know they had a huge turnout because they were having the older kids volunteer. Or does soccer do something like that? Or their coaches are considering in the future doing like summer, maybe even make it part of the enrichment thing? I don't know if we cross athletics into it, but offering something that the kids can come and try sports.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something that Ryan Patry does a very nice job with, and he always has during the season. He loses 2 practices because he brings in those younger kids, and that's something I'd love to see more programs do because you can see that what they're doing is working very well for their program. So you can see the 2 strong programs in the district and the ones that we need to build on. So that is something I would love to have in the future. I know soccer has an AYSO thing that they do during the summer, but I think getting some of our high school athletes to attend that and kind of promote that amongst our athletes is really what we need to add to that to keep growing our numbers. So football, that is just varsity. But if you look at just varsity, we only have 6 of our own Waynesburg students. Thank you, I forgot that bullet point. We only have 6 of the entire football team that are from Waynesburg. For modified as well, we have lower numbers. So we're not throwing our whole weight behind football like BKW is.
Wasn't there a time, was it in COVID that we had more Williamsburg than where we?
I think it was pretty even. In the last few years, there were a lot of upperclassmen. And since they've graduated, our modified numbers haven't really filled that just yet. I talked with Gary Moran, the varsity football coach for BKW, and he had said that they're trying to figure out what's happening from the modified level to the varsity level and why they're not transitioning. So they're very aware of it, and we're trying to figure out what exactly is going on from that 7th and 8th grade level to transition to varsity. They think it's a JV issue because there is no easier transition to varsity. You literally go from modified to boom. There you go. You're gonna get tackled by a senior.
Right.
Right. So they think it's that, but it's a matter of trying to get those kids prepared and feel safe to go to varsity. Yeah. I do. Yeah, there's a huge shift. Soccer is really thriving, and I know 3 years ago we had struggled forming our own varsity team. And football has really made that switch to the point where Tom has discussed with EG thinking about even merging them in. I know in our LAC meetings, it seems like a lot of schools are just constantly losing numbers, and everything is getting more and more merged. So that is a possibility for football in the future, but we don't know if that will go anywhere because EG is a private school, and the liability insurance gets all nice and fun on that. So, but that is something we've talked about because our numbers, we barely have enough to have a varsity football team combined right now.
Do you know if that's football in general right now? Is that
I think-
region wide or is that just smaller schools?
I
Or?
think small schools, it's very hard to field a football team right now, just because of numbers. And the proximity between the schools makes it difficult. That's why BG is one of our biggest options because they're close enough. And then the transportation end.
mostly on coach involvement? Like, are the coaches the primary driver for getting the word out and trying to like scoop up kids and get them into their sport?
Based on the past numbers, that seems to be exactly what's happening. It seems like the coaches that have really put and invested a lot of time into their program and really cared about the upcoming athletes have really thrived. I think it's a matter, there's more that we can do on our end, that we plan to do on our end, and having more of those events so that those kids can come in and see those athletes, or have events where we have senior athletes coming in and kind of being like that professional sport for those kids. So there's more we can do on our end, but in the past, it has been mainly those varsity coaches that have really taken it on their shoulders to build their own program.
I assume you don't necessarily know this, and it's really early in the year, but is there any idea if all extracurriculars are this low? Is it primarily just athletics right now? I mean, it's so early that I don't, like, drama, I imagine, hasn't started. But is there any excitement for extracurriculars?
It's really too early to tell.
It's too early?
Yeah. It's hard to tell, especially with school just being back.
Sure.
Kids fall with how safe do they feel? How excited are they to do this? How much do they want to go back to their couch and just put their head in a video game for hours? It's just hard to tell what they really want at this stage. Whether they want to go back to normalcy, what their parents would like them to do, all those factors.
Is there an idea when those numbers, when usually would those seasons really start? In October?
Like just for club enrollments you're talking
Clubs, standard extracurriculars, just to try to get an idea of where are the kids going
probably
after school?
We'll probably have a better sense at, I would say, maybe not the next board meeting, but the board meeting after that, I can have some numbers for you.
I have had students though ask me if they could get advisors for certain things. Like, I know your son came up to me asking for an advisor for the D&D club. But he said he has enough people, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I can't do it, unfortunately, but that's really cool. So I think that we just need to cater more to what those students want and what they would like to do. I know video games are huge too. It's just kind of shifting to what they like now instead of what we're so used to as clubs. So we'll get there. As long as they're telling us, we'll make adjustments to give them those resources. Yeah.
As far as like announcements in school, are the results of like games announced?
Yeah, we're working on that now. So tomorrow, I believe, is our first newscast on the TV. So as of right now, we've only had it on announcements, but that is something I've planned on incorporating more. If we can get further into it, I would really like to have almost like a live broadcast or a recap of sports for the week, so that they can see that weekly, kind of like a ESPN top 10 kind of situation. Because if you just hear it read off the announcements, the kids don't feel as important. They're like, oh, cool, my name won, okay, bye. You know, just trying to make them feel even more excited about what they're doing and proud of what they're doing for our school. So it is in the works, and with our video starting up tomorrow, we can start incorporating more of that.
Okay. As far as like spectating games, I'm guessing kids, if they're not like siblings, wouldn't be able to attend.
Right now, we have 2 people per family.
Oh, so 2 people, whoever. That's right.
But we are live streaming. So I did send an email out to coaches that if they would like at least a game live stream for their season that's not volleyball, because I know volleyball, that's a whole thing. So volleyball is going to have all their home events live streamed. But any outdoor event like soccer, we've live streamed in the past. Golf's real hard, so no promises on that one. But we're trying to make it so that everyone has at least one live streamed event for the season, so that they all feel like everyone can kind of see what they're doing. It's just not, we can't do every single game, unfortunately, and they have overlap, so we're trying to create that schedule so we can give everyone that opportunity. Because we are limited.
Thank you. Move on to superintendent status report.
I want to just, I know that you're aware, but I want to just make sure that you're all clear that we did have, between last meeting and this meeting, the new governor did announce that she would be putting in some additional mandates, and we did get word from the Department of Health about those mandates, like right before school started. It's a very fun time of year for all school administrators across New York State to get, that night before school guidance from the Department of Health. Luckily, though, it basically aligned with what we were doing. The only thing that's a little different is that we're still in a high community transmission zone. The only thing that's different now is that the mask requirement goes all the way down, even in low. So basically, we have a mask requirement inside schools until it's rescinded. So that's a change. The other thing that changed more recently than that is the announcement that unvaccinated staff would have to be tested weekly. And so that's a change for us too. So we did send out information to unvaccinated staff members to say, if you don't provide proof of vaccination, then we will test weekly. We're working with Schenectady County on testing. Right before this meeting, I was working on the consent forms for people to consent to testing. There's two different kinds of tests that we're using. So we're still using the Binax Now cards, but the primary thing that we'll be using are cheek swabs and pool testing. So those cheek swabs will be sent to a lab and they'll be tested within 48 hours, and then the results will come back to parents. And the difference between the two is that the Binax Now cards are very immediate. So you get the results back in 15 minutes. But if you get a result that is a negative, you still have to have a confirmatory PCR test. I would like not to know the difference between different kinds of tests at some point in my life. I'd like to forget all this information. But you need a confirmatory PCR test, as we all know. But the difference between that and the pool test is actually will give you a definitive answer. And so what we can do now is we can give somebody, if somebody's feeling ill, we are able to give them a Binax Now test in school. If it's positive, they're positive. If it's negative, then they have to have a confirmatory test, or we can give them a saliva-based swab test them for diagnostic purposes. Parents never have to go to CVS or Rite Aid or anything. You can get the test done right at school. We can tell them within 48 hours. And we can do all this for free.
Awesome.
So through the county, through that stimulus money. Did you have a question, Tony?
That's what I was gonna ask. If a kid comes down to the nurse feels ill, do we test them?
Yep, we'll now be able to do that diagnostic testing as long as parents consent to that testing.
Okay.
So that'll be the challenge now, is getting parents to consent to this test. The test does require a form to be brought back into school, which is always challenging. And also parents will have to set up an account online. They'll be able to access the results of tests on that online account, but they still do have to go online and create an account, which makes me nervous because whenever things have multiple steps, fewer people do them. And so hopefully people take advantage of that so that we can get this testing thing so quick that it's basically seamless and we can keep kids in school as much as possible. So
Jim,
that's
if-
what we're doing. Yeah.
If there isn't consent for testing, is it a presumed positive? Is that what we're doing?
So if students are presenting symptoms and there's no consent for testing,
Yeah.
we do send them home, and if they can't present us with a negative test from someplace else, we have to presume it positive. And so those students will be out for 10 days.
Okay.
And again, the only time that we're doing any kind of hybrid stuff, any kind of us streaming from classrooms, is for those quarantines. So this this week, I don't know, one of these weeks. So we actually had our first, it was actually
Yesterday.
Sunday night. So we had our first positive case on Sunday night. So we were able to determine who needed to be quarantined. And so the nurses were able to get all that squared away. I think the high school was able to start right away the following day maybe, but the elementary school takes a little longer for them to begin the streaming stuff. I will tell you though, that the thing to watch for this year isn't so much the classroom quarantine. What's really going to get us is the bus. And that's because in classrooms, we're able to sit 3 feet apart with masks on. And as long as you're doing those things, you won't be quarantined. So unless somebody took like an excessively long mask break, or there was a meal that was served and you were within 3 feet of each other. So basically, inside of the school, for this case, we only had to quarantine the one student and 3 people that the student was eating lunch with who were vaccinated. But we had another 19 people who were on the bus. And the reason for that is because the bus does not have the 3-foot requirement. The bus requires 6 feet. And that's because the CDC language is different for classrooms than it is for buses. And why that is, I don't know. I think that the reason that we were given was that it's because there's less monitoring on the bus. Kids are maybe presuming that kids are taking their masks down. I don't think that that's as accurate as they think it might be. The windows are also open. I think it's just something that has not caught up with the rest of the guidance. And I would be really surprised if other schools don't start really making some noise about bus quarantining if it continues to happen.
So the students are sitting 6 feet apart on the bus? Or
On the
they're
bus?
supposed to be? No,
No,
they're not, right.
But students within 6 feet will be
Oh,
quarantined.
I see. So, and
So
so
that
there will
means,
be a bus
that
seating
means
chart.
2 seats ahead of you, 2 seats
Got it.
behind you,
Yeah.
2 seats on the side, the diagonal. So
Got it.
if you look at the, on the top of our webpage, you can see the little algorithm that's used to quarantine people. Another thing that I would like to not know is the algorithm that the county uses to quarantine people.
Right.
So after this is all over, we should have a community-wide mind purge of all this
Yeah.
information about epidemiology that we don't really care to know. But you can see the buses really covers a wide area, and it doesn't matter whether the windows are open, whether masks are on. None of that stuff seems to have any seems to factor into who gets quarantined. So this one hit us particularly hard because it happened to be the first day of school, and so there was some shifting around on the bus to get the seating chart right. And so we won't be doing that now. We're pretty much locked in, and so hopefully things improve, and hopefully our 12 and up population continues to take advantage of vaccinations. So I did want to present to you something that's not COVID related, which is how we're doing on our strategic plan. So this is something that I proposed last year, and the board worked on with me, and also I worked on with all the departments, and also in the elementary school and the high school to come up with a set of goals that we're going to be focusing on. And so every year, what I'd like to do is give you an update about how our strategic plan is going. And so I'll just give you a brief recap of some district data. So we know that our enrollment has been declining over time. We know that right now we're sitting right about at it's kind of close to where we are now, between 650 and 670. We're kind of in that area. We know that our special ed population is relatively low. Our economically disadvantaged population is actually kind of plateaued. We're definitely not a school district that has an overwhelming number of special education students or economically disadvantaged students. We know that we're right in the middle of operating expenses per pupil, which is where Mr. Risenberg really likes to see us, especially because if you look at our results versus comparable schools, I think that community members are getting more bang for their buck. So even though we're not one of the more expensive school districts per pupil, we do have really great graduation rates and really great assessment results. These are schools, by the way, these schools are the comp schools that we look at because they're similarly sized, they're in the same region. If you look at our graduation rates, so we're right on top, tied with Skodak at 94%. And so our graduation rate has been consistently awesome, thanks in part to our high school staff and Ms. Marvin, everything that goes into creating a great community at our schools. We did give a district culture survey out again. The last time we'd given a district culture survey was 2019. We actually, so one thing that's important to know is that more people took this district culture survey than they did before. We got a really good rate of return, and we actually increased in every single category on the culture survey. Okay, and so positive perception rose in every category. There's only two categories that are below 65% positive. Disciplinary practices and mental health greatly improved. The mental health was something that it's really important to me that people understand the mental health resources that we have as a district. We actually focused on that during our conference days too, because I think some staff members don't even realize how many resources we have compared to similarly sized schools or even larger schools. And so it's important for me that people know that we have these resources in-house that we can use. So I still think, though, that the perception of mental health services is still low for students and staff. They still don't know what we have and what they can access here in school. And so we still have to work on that. And the perception of emotional safety is still relatively low despite the resources that we put into that particular indicator. So we're continuing to work. And so we'll give out this survey every year, and hopefully we can continue to see our results get better and better. College and career readiness, this shows not very much change in terms of who went where. We did have more students who were actually enrolled in four-year colleges than the past couple of years, but it's relatively consistent. We did have more students who were math ready, and so that's my own number. That's not the state's number. And so when I say math ready, I mean these are students who took Algebra 2. They're ready for college math, and so we had more students take a higher percentage of students who graduated who had taken Algebra 2 than the previous year. We had fewer students, though, that took upper level science courses. So we want to see both of those things improve over time. We did have a lot of students earning college credits. So we had 606 college credits total were earned by last year's senior class. And the percentage of graduates that earned college credit was 70%. So that's really good. The one thing that really always concerns me is seniors who graduate without a plan. Okay, so whether they're going to a 2-year school, 4-year school, military, those things don't make me nervous. What makes me nervous is when a student graduates and they have no plan. This year, because of the work of Ms. Marvin and the counselors in the high school, and also the partnership of Schenectady County Community College, all of our seniors will be enrolling in at least a backup plan. So all of our students will be enrolled at Schenectady during their senior year, and so we'll at least have that 2-year backup plan, which is often the plan that people who don't have plans end up making anyway. So what we're doing is trying to front load that decision, and so I think that's going to have a positive impact too. It was really hard to do this because last year was a different year, and so I will tell you that fewer graduates took 2 or more art courses. That was down from 53% the year before. We also, 32% of last year's graduates took 2 family and consumer science courses, down from 48%. I didn't have any way to measure extracurricular activities last year because there wasn't any extracurricular activities. But technology remains pretty constant. 40% of kids took 2 or more technology courses. Athletics was actually up last year, and part of that was because of how the seasons were arranged. Kids could participate in more sports because there was no conflict, so kids were able to play, a fall sport and a spring sport. So that was great. We also 4% of last year's graduates had career and technical education credit, which was down a bit. Business is still quite low. Only 4% of last year's graduates took at least 2 business courses. That's pretty 22% took at least 2 music courses. So that could be band 2 years, chorus 2 years, band and chorus. And so that's still relatively low too. So back to our goals. So our academic achievement goals were really to make sure in the elementary school that kids are demonstrating proficiency across curriculum, and especially kids in poverty. So that's the one indicator that we're really focusing on, those economically disadvantaged kids. And also this year, we're adding special ed students to that mix too. So those are our 2 indicator groups that we really want to grow. And so there was no way to determine 3 through 5, how kids did on 3 through 5 tests last year because so few kids took the 3 through 5 tests that the data is pretty much meaningless. The test was different. We did have some kids take it. The numbers don't really mean too much, but I'll say that we're doing a lot to reach these goals anyway. And so we transitioned to a new math curriculum this summer to Reveal Math. The elementary school is really excited about using Reveal Math. We used to use Go Math in the elementary school, and Go Math was phased out by the publisher. So they elected after a full year-long really search for curriculum and a really careful, detailed search. They elected to go with Reveal Math and have done training this summer to get up to speed on Reveal Math. They've been reading books as a faculty. They read a book this summer called Free Lunch, which is a fiction book, right? It's fiction. A memoir. And so the purpose of that book was to really understand what it's like to be a student in poverty. Right? And so they read that. And remember how many people participated in that? 11 people read that. There's a committee that's also in the elementary school that focuses on kids in poverty, making sure that they get what they need to succeed. And also there was a lot of work that was done to align assessments to learning objectives to create really good quality classroom-based assessments. In the junior, senior high school, our goal was really to develop a more cohesive middle school program. And so we've done a bunch of stuff to do that, not the least of which is hiring Polly to really focus on the middle school program. We have increased the number of grade levels that are using illustrative math, which is a program that's been successful for kids, and we've expanded that. So now it's a 6 through 8. 6 through 8 are using it. We did a lot of curriculum writing this summer to address all these goals that are written there. Just about every department had something going on this summer to try to address their goal that would help us increase proficiency across areas. Also, to improve middle school, we added Max Tech Science to 6th grade, so stuff that wasn't there before. So hopefully all that has a benefit. In terms of personal development, we wanted to increase the number of high school students who had taken at least 2 business courses by graduation. We wanted to make sure that people were taking advantage of our business courses. So one of the things that we did was we hired this guy. His name's Mark, and Mark is a very enthusiastic guy, and he's already become a quick favorite with kids. He's already working to get some work experience for students, special ed students especially, but I know that he's developing internship opportunities, work-based learning opportunities. He's also a certified work-based coordinator, so hopefully we can increase that over time. We also want to increase the number of kids who are taking 2 or more music classes. We did hire a new music teacher, Lindsay Hack, and so her music courses have started, and so we're excited to be able to offer that full complement of music courses. We wanted to increase the technology capacity of staff, so one of the things we did was move Melanie O'Neill out of the classroom to be an instructional technology integration specialist working K-12 to help train our staff on all the different programs that we've integrated into our system over the last couple of years. So we're excited about that. She's already done a bunch of training during the opening days with new staff and with returning staff on our new student information system. And we've also really tried to address how we do PD internally. How are we doing professional development with teachers, new teachers? We had a really successful new teacher orientation. We had, I think, a successful 2 conference days. The feedback from staff was really great. So hopefully we're doing a better job at giving staff the professional learning that they want and need, and not just what we're giving them. We're working on facilities, modernizing our facilities, making our facilities safe. And one of the things that we're doing right now is the bus loop project, but we'll be working on another capital project after the new year. So I'm really looking forward to that. So we're still focusing on our facilities and our finances, making sure that we can continue to modernize our spaces without increasing tax burden. We're also really focusing on culture and how do we foster a culture that people believe is safe and welcoming and inclusive. And the main way that we're doing that right now is by partnering with an outside group called Generation Ready that has now trained, they've had contact with everybody on staff except for the transportation department. So there's a core group of 20 odd teachers and administrators and clerical workers. We're kind of the steering group, the pilot group, who have had more extensive training. They actually have 3 days of training. They just had their 4th during their last conference day. And then everybody else has gone through the first module of training. And the goal of that is really to help folks understand what equity means. So a lot of times when people hear the word equity or diversity or inclusion, they think, the first thing that they think of is that it's solely about race, when really what we're focusing on right now, what we focused on with the majority of staff during the conference days was the idea of perception and labeling and understanding how that works in schools and in life. And it doesn't just have to be about race. There's lots of things, lots of ways that perception and labeling impacts kids. One of the things that I thought was pretty special was that during one of the days, we actually had a student with a disability come in to talk to the staff about her experiences having a physical disability in our school. Anna is our primary coach, and she's been helping work with us for that. And then also, we're bringing on another person from Generation Ready who's going to be focused just on special education. The next phase of that work for us is that these folks will be doing some observations of classrooms across the district. And then we'll be using their data to construct some goals for our district and eventually creating an equity plan to see what really needs to be addressed here. I haven't talked to anybody who hasn't thought that the work with Generation Ready wasn't positive, was anything but positive. I got to sit in on them working with our maintenance staff, which was a hoot because some of the folks in the maintenance staff were very funny. And, but I know that everybody was interested in doing this work. And the only reason we didn't have transportation doing this is because we had transportation working on PBIS with Polly and another teacher. So everybody's working on social emotional learning and culture. And so that's how we're doing on our goals. So I think that we made a lot of progress in a year where we could have just focused on the crisis at hand, but instead of that, we're still pushing forward and trying to help the district to grow into a better place. So does anybody have any questions about that?
No, it's great to have tangible numbers to compare and contrast against. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Presentation and approval of prior Board of Education meeting minutes. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the meeting minutes from the August 17th, 2021 regular board meeting as submitted. Do a motion? And second? Melissa? Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to new business standing committee reports. I think there was one, if not 2, committee meetings.
We just had an education committee meeting, and then we had a buildings and grounds committee.
Okay. Francis, would you like to give an update on buildings and grounds? Anything to report?
It was just a brief discussion about the potential property.
Okay, thank you. And education?
We met, Jim presented a study, just based on how many students we've had in the past and how many we're projected to have in the future, so we can make, some financial plans, based on that. And it was very informational, but really like nothing eye-shattering or anything like that. And then Holly did come and just kind of update us on all the work that she's been doing for the middle school program and just doing lots of getting to know what we have and then work from there. But it's only been a couple weeks, so major work in progress. And thank you for coming to the meeting.
Thank you, Teresa. Any questions for any committees? Moving on to financial, accept claims auditors reports. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the claims auditors' comments on general warrants A7 in the amount of $121,267.78 dated 8/18/21, A9 in the amount of $10,671.35 dated 8/26/21, and A10 in the amount of $313,911.79 dated 9/1/21. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Francis. Second? Thank you, Shane. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Accept financial reports. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the appropriation status, revenue status, and treasurer's reports ending July 31st, 2021, as provided by the treasurer and recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane. A second? Melissa? Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Award bid for classroom interactive flat panels. Recommendation that the Duanesburg Board of Education award the classroom interactive flat panel installation and procurement with installation of external audio and video capabilities bid for $50,686 to Presentation Concepts Corp. PCC as recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Teresa. Second? Thank you, Tony. Any comments or questions?
How many classrooms is this for to begin with?
It's gonna be 10 total when we're done, right?
Yes, but with this one, we're doing 6.
Okay.
So we have 4 classrooms now, and then we plan to do another phase after this too. But the rooms that are set up right now, you can see one in the elementary school library is probably the most public one, but we also have a couple in the high school, and they're pretty fantastic. They're 86-inch flat panel monitors that you can multi-touch and kids can stream to them. They're pretty great.
So I will say also that we received 2 bids for this, and PCC was the only one that could actually fulfill all of the requirements on the bid specs. The other company that had bid was unable to provide the warranty that we were looking for in the service.
So one of the few times when we selected the higher bid.
Right. So they actually, the losing bid was actually lower because they couldn't provide for what we were asking for.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to other, be it resolved that the updated policy manual of the Duanesburg Central School District as reviewed and recommended by the Superintendent and Policy Committee is hereby approved and adopted by the board with the second reading being waived. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Teresa. Second? Thank you, Tony. Any comments or questions?
Now, it's understood there's gonna be some final formatting and some like typographical corrections.
Yes, we'll get as close to perfect as we can get.
Moving target.
That's right.
Yep.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to personnel, rescind appointment R. Canavo. Resolved that the appointment of Rosa Canavo, elementary school special education teacher approved on July 7th, 2021 is hereby rescinded. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Shane. Second. Thank you, Diane. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approved termination, P. Wood. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services, the Board of Education hereby terminates the employment of Paul Wood, evening cleaner, effective August 25th, 2021. Do I have a motion? Francis, second. Tony? Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Accept retirement resignation, Jay Barnhart. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the resignation for retirement of Jackie Barnhart, bus driver, effective August 16th, 2021. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Melissa. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Shane. Any questions or comments?
It's an impressive number of years.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I spoke to Jackie the other day and I definitely thanked her for her many years of service to the district. And she said that it was a pleasure to do it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Accept resignation, Kay Stedell. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the resignation of Casey Stedell, high school teacher aide, retroactive to September 8th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Thank you, Teresa. Second. Thank you, Tony. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve election inspectors. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the following election inspectors for the September 23rd, 2021 special capital project vote at a rate of $15 per hour. As listed. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Tony. Diane, one second. Thank you. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve appointment S. Terwilliger. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Duanesburg Central School District hereby accepts the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Shelby Terwilliger, slipping over my words, to a 4-year probationary appointment as an art teacher in the art tenure area, Master's Step 2, commencing August 30th, 2021, and ending August 29th, 2025, contingent upon compliance with the requirements of the education law. Ms. Terwilliger, I apologize. Ms. Terwilliger, this is not the one that I was going to have trouble. Terwilliger has her master's degree in art education. I apologize for that if you're listening. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Thank you, Shane. A second? Thank you, Melissa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve appointment C. Pratt. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the appointment of Kayla Pratt as long-term substitute school media specialist, high school library, effective August 30th, 2021, Master's Step 3. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane. Second? Thank you, Francis. Comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve appointment L. Gunjemi. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Leslie Gunjemi to a 4-year probationary appointment as an elementary school special education teacher in the special education tenure area, Master Step 1, commencing August 30th, 2021, and ending August 29th, 2025, contingent upon compliance with the requirements of the education law. Ms. Gunjemi has pending initial certifications in childhood education grades 1 through 6 and special education grades 1 through 6. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Melissa. Second? Thank you, Diane. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve ECA appointment. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the following appointment as recommended by the superintendent and athletic director. ECA appointments are for the applicable 2021-2022 school year and sports season, beginning with preseason practice and ending at the conclusion of the season, including sectional play. All appointments are employees at will, and appointment at this time does not guarantee employment for the entire school season, term, or year. The operation of certain clubs and activities are subject to COVID-19 related restrictions. George Martin, volunteer boys varsity basketball assistant. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Tony. Is there more?
There's one.
I didn't. Okay. And Benjamin Cook, modified football coach. Thank you, Shane. I missed that. Okay. Any comments or questions? Or did I get a second? Did I get a second on that one, Celeste? Did I get a second? All right, well, how about first? Teresa?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shane. Comments or questions? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve appointments. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the following appointments as recommended by the Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. All appointments are employees at will, and appointment at this time does not guarantee employment for the entire school year term, as listed. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Melissa. A second? Thank you, Tony. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve reestablishment of position and reappointment of B. Lawrence. Recommendation that the Board of Education reestablish the licensed practical nurse LPN position that was previously abolished, and as per DESA bargaining agreement, honors the recall rights to appoint Brittany Lawrence as LPN effective September 22nd, 2021, pending fingerprint clearance as recommended by the Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Diane. A second? Thank you, Francis. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's the last action item on the list. There's informational adult meal pricing increase that's noted. At this time, the board will be moving into executive session and does not plan to return for normal course business. Do I have a motion to move into executive session at 8:02 p.m.?
Motion.
I got Shane and I got Francis as a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, and we will not be returning.
You could probably, we could probably stay here. If we can
Turn off
convince
the
people to
stream.
leave. Yeah, let me turn off the stream. Thank you, everybody.
This is one at a time.
Yeah.
His back cleared.